Hello, and welcome to this episode in the Basics series entitled Adding Match Competitors. I'm John Becker with Shooters Technology, makers of the Orion scoring system software and the Athena electronic scoring target. In this episode, we'll cover how to add match competitors. From the desktop software in Orion, there's four ways to add match competitors. You can enter them manually, you can right-click to add from the athlete database, you can set up favorites, or you can import from Excel. So we're going to go ahead and let's go to the desktop and get started and opening the Orion software. So find your icon, double click the software to start it up, and then you'll want to select the match that you want to add competitors to. I have an example sample match. If you do not have any favorites set, this will be the default page you find under the Match Competitors tab. So this would be your first option to enter manually. So you can enter team members, you can enter all the details you want to capture, you can assign competitor numbers, you can link them to an athlete database, set their normal three position air type, assign them to teams for the match. This would also be where you would add their email if they were going to use the mobile app. So this gives you a lot of flexibility, but for the most part, you're not going to want to add these to every match, right? So the next option would be to add from the athlete database. So this, if you have saved athletes and you want to track them. So this actually serves as two purposes. So athlete database, you can track anybody who shoots at your match, or if you just want your team members over the years or just current year, you can select them as a favorite, which we'll get to in a second. But let's say you've already established this athlete database and you want to add these four individuals to the current match. You can select them all in a group and then right click and say add athlete to match. And you have the ability to add them as individuals or members of a team if you've already created teams in the match team tab. So I'm going to go ahead and add them as a team, which also adds them to the individual competitor or match competitor tab as individuals, assigns um, a sequential competitor number, and then sets them up, adds them to the team. You could go from here if you were going to print labels or start your match. So that covers manually and then right clicking from the athlete database. What I want to show you now, I'm going to close out of this. What I'll show you now is how to use favorites. So back in the Orion desktop software, we're going to create a new match because you're only presented with the favorite option at the beginning of the creation of the match. And we can call this anything, just again back to the example earlier. You set a rule book, course fire, etc. So we're going to go with that. It's going to confirm. Now I have favorites saved, so they're automatically going to get added to the match. So if you notice, these four favorites from the athlete database were automatically added. They're linked to the database. They are not on a team because each match you have to create teams for them to be populated to, but you have the individuals already populated. So that's going to be probably a great majority of your time because you can keep your current team members, you can keep this year's roster. So even if, let's say, you had 10 folks on the rifle team, but only 8 of them showed up to your practice today for this practice match, they would still be populated here, and add you could print out labels for them, or you can just skip them, the folks that weren't there. but usually your favorites are going to be the ones that attend your matches or attend your practices the most often. So let me go ahead and show you the last way to add, and that is by importing from Excel. This is going to be used more if you are hosting a match or postal or have a bunch of data. You could use it for marksmanship training for your JROTC programs. If you want to import a class list from your student management system software, or again, if you're hosting a match. So on the Match Competitors tab, back under Match, you go to Import, and then you'll bring in participants, and you will go to wherever your file is located. I have a file on the desktop that I'm going to double click. It's going to open the Excel file, and you're going to be presented with the fields it found in Excel and where you want them to map to Orion. Now, if you call them exactly the same name, generally Orion will find them and know that something called relay in Excel is going to map exactly to relay in Orion. But you can also go in, like in my data, I had first, MI, last as names. Well, I can tell it to import and map this to first name in Orion. I'll have MI and map that to middle name. Last can to be to last name. And these can be anything you want to call them. Obviously, the more reasonable that you can find them and know what they mean, the better, but they don't have to be related to that as long as you know where to map them from. Competitor number would be competitor number. Class in my example was air rifle type, so 3-position air rifle type. And then relay firing points if I'm setting up a match. And then it'll even bring in blank columns. If there was data in there, you can map them. And then all you do is click import, and they get added to the match. So um, that's an easy way, especially if you're bringing in large quantities of data, because nobody would want to enter these manually. Um, you could, but you introduce a lot of chance of input error and then just the time saving of not having to do that. So um, importing also works for match teams. If you had teams defined and then imported those and labeled the column, it'll populate the teams, but you would have to come in first and define the teams. Um, so thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified when future instructional videos are available. If you have any additional questions, feel free to check our helpful guides on the website or email or call our offices for further assistance.